In this video, I want to talk about needs assessments. In the last videos, we talked about defining a problem by writing a problem statement and a problem model. The next step in program planning is conducting a needs assessment to learn more about the problem that the community is facing. First, I want to go back a couple of steps and remind you that we are using the Get to Outcomes framework developed by the RAND Corporation. This is a conceptual framework and it offers a series of steps in planning and evaluation. And it's useful because it shows all the required sort of conceptual steps that you have to go through in the life of a program from its inception planning phases to its evaluation phases. So in the GTO framework, we have 10 steps in the development and evaluation of a program. We are on the first step here. In the previous video, we discussed defining the problem, which is the first step, is choosing which problems to focus on. But defining the problem is not enough. Right? After problem definition, we need to conduct a needs assessment. While the problem definition is going to give us a general understanding of the problem, the needs assessment and the assets assessment are going to give us a detailed assessment of the state of the problem, its contributing factors, and the community assets we have available to fix the problem. Like I said, the needs assessment comes after you have defined a large social problem. The needs assessment, as defined in our textbook, the GTO framework, is a systematic process of gathering information about the current condition of a targeted area that underlie the need for an intervention. Your needs assessment will be guided by the problem model you created while defining the problem. The research you conducted while creating your problem model allowed you to identify the condition, which is the problem in itself. But it also allowed you to identify the risk and protective factors associated with the problem. Now, in the needs assessment, you need to go further. You need to gather more data and information and analysis on how this condition affects the local population and specific groups within the population. You need to get data and information on the state of the risk and protective factors in the community, and also on what resources and assets are available for the community to address this problem or condition. Right? Let me give you an example so that you can understand how the problem definition stage relates to the needs assessment and how they complement each other. You start from a problem definition. You identify a problem in your community, and you work on developing a problem statement and a problem model, like we discussed in the previous videos. Let's suppose you came up with this problem, that the child obesity rate in Monterey County is too high. After you worked on the problem statement, you created a problem model where you identified the contributing factors to that problem and the consequences of that problem. In this case, the contributing factors were the lack of physical activity, which is a risk factor for obesity, or lack of access to healthy fresh food, which is also a risk factor, or easy access to unhealthy snacks at school, which is also a risk factor. That definition and this model that you have created for your problem is going to guide your needs assessment. In the needs assessment, you will ask how the problem or this condition, how childhood obesity affects the local population and specific groups within the population. Does it affect all children equally, or does it affect specific groups within your population? You can look at geographic characteristics. Does obesity affect more children who live in, let's say, South County, or in the Salinas area, or in North County, or in the Peninsula area? Where is it more prevalent? You may also look at race and ethnicity factors. Does obesity impact children of different races or ethnicities the same or differently? Or you may look at income. Is obesity in your community a problem that affects more lower socioeconomic status families, or vice versa? That is the first question. The second question is, what is the state of risk and protective factors in the community? Where are we in relation to where we wanted to be? And remember, these risk and protective factors came from the problem model. And also, we will ask, what resources and assets does the community have to address this condition of obesity? For example, what do we have that can help us get where we need to be? So you would ask these questions, and you would gather data for each of the risk factors that you have identified in your problem model, like we have here. In this in this diagram, you have the three risk factors or contributing factors that we found for the problem. And for each of them, we're asking the needs, specific needs in our community. For example, for lack of physical activity, we need information. We need to know which groups lack physical activity and why. How widespread is this lack of physical activity in our community? Right? For the second risk factor, lack of access to healthy fresh food, you would ask, which groups lack access to healthy food and why? Is it just certain groups? Is it certain areas of the county? Are there food deserts around the county? How do we know? What data do we have on that? Or for easy access to unhealthy snacks, you may ask, what kind of snacks do they have access to? Is it equal across the county? Right? So we need information on where we are in this risk factors so that we have an idea of where to attack to solve the problem. Now, for each of these risk factors, we not only ask, where are we in terms of how big of a problem each of risk factors is, but we also ask, what do we have in the community to address these risk factors? Are there parks, for example, for the lack of physical activity risk factor? Are there green areas that can be used? Are there sports clubs? Do we have, how many after school programs do we have that focus on sports or physical activity? How are the physical education do we have physical education programs in certain schools, maybe? For the lack of access to healthy food, we may ask, what programs do we have in place? What is the state of our farmers markets? Do we have availability of fresh food? We live in Monterey County. We produce most of the vegetables for the state, and in many cases for the nation, right? So this should be an asset to that we can utilize to solve our problem. Or for the easy access to unhealthy snacks contributing factor, we may ask, how many schools have healthy snack programs? What do we have any education programs about snacks in schools, and so forth? So the needs assessment is targeted. We're going after information that can help us assess in detail how widespread the problem that we identified is, and also how much each of these risk factors is a problem in itself. Where are we in these risk and protective factors in relation to where we want to be? And also, what do we have in terms of assets that can help us bolster or these protective factors or diminish the risk factors? The needs assessment, when you're done, should allow you to identify where the problem is most prevalent, should allow you to identify what groups of people you should target with your program, and should allow you to identify which risk and protective factors are mostly associated with the condition, and which ones we are lacking in the most, which protective factors we are lacking the most, or which risk factors we have most present. We will also learn more about the suspected needs and maybe uncover new needs. And we also learn, and this is very important, about what other programs are out there that are um, working on the problem. And this will allow us to know whether the community is ready to respond to the issue or maybe not yet, and obtain baseline data on where the community is at this point when we are planning a program. So in summary, we conduct a needs assessment only after we have identified and defined a problem and a problem model. The needs assessment should provide an in-depth study of the state of the protective factors and risk factors that contribute to the identified problem, and also give us a clear picture of what assets and resources are in the community to ameliorate the problem. In the next video, we will discuss the steps that go into a needs assessment or conducting a needs assessment. For this one, I wanted to make sure that you understand how the needs assessment comes from the problem definition stage and how it complements the problem definition stage so that we can have a clear understanding of areas that we can have an impact on with our program, and what areas are already covered by other programs out there, and what areas can be used to leverage existing resources that we must have. That's what the needs assessment is for. I will see you in the next video where we'll talk about the steps that go into conducting a needs assessment. Thank you for watching.